Florida State brought back down to earth after a dramatic overtime loss to Virginia, but there's still our game of the week against Miami and then Alabama, Vanderbilt. Can the Commodores get it done again? This is College Football Kickoff. Welcome back to Fire TV's College Football Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola. I'm your host, Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 and the Savannah Bananas organization, and we're coming in hot from the heart of college football country in Dallas, Texas. On set with me, two legends, 22-time Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former Tar Heel and Dallas Cowboy Jesse Holley. Every week throughout the season, we'll be breaking down the matchups, the moments, and the madness with expert analysis from across the nation. Look for new episodes every Thursday on your Fire TV and Echo Show devices. This is your all-access pass to the weekend ahead in college football. Let's kick it off. Jesse, the Oregon Ducks. Do we have a new number one team in the country in your mind?
We don't. I still do believe that Miami's the best team in the country.
Okay.
But Oregon definitely went out there and showed themselves worthy of being in that conversation. It's a team that when you look at their coach, they reflect that type of energy. Kind of a madman, kind of a fast-paced guy. But Oregon, a really good football team.
Yeah, they are. To go into Penn State, white out, do all the things they did, and then do it the way, because people don't need to forget, they were up 17-0, and then everything, it went into overtime. But, they really got after him for most of the ball game.
No doubt. Let's go into more depth on who should be number one and in that top five on this week's Rankings Report. One of the biggest storylines in the Rankings Report this week, Ole Miss jumping 9 spots to number 4. Jesse, they looked legit against LSU.
No, absolutely. Coach Kiffin has got those boys rolling. He's found his quarterback and his dual-threat quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss, and that team is explosive. That team is energetic, and I love the way that Coach Kiffin coaches. He gives it to you raw. He gives it to you uncut. He has those guys ready to go and play some expired football right now.
Well, we talked about last week. They had Georgia last year, big home game, upset, and then my number one team in my ranking last week was LSU, and it didn't even look like that close of a ball game.
No, I don't think it did. If you actually watched it, Ole Miss was able to control LSU and finish the game off. Speaking of those rankings you had last week where LSU was number 1, let's see how it's changed. Coach, what's your top 5?
Well, now being able to see Ohio State and Oregon both go on the road, I had Ohio State, then Oregon. Miami, I still think is one of those teams, but they are idle. And then Ole Miss, the way they played, and then A&M.
Your lurkers, your lookers, your lovers.
Well, my lurkers, even though they right now don't know about the quarterback, but I saw a picture of just a Band-Aid on a hand, so I've got OU in my lurkers. I got Alabama really moving up, Texas Tech. Got to talk from somebody from Texas, Penn State, and LSU.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech is a team that most of the country is overlooking. They were dominant defensively against Utah, 34-10, their win a couple weeks ago. Their defensive line is one of the best in college football. They paid a lot of money for that defensive line, by the way, but they've got a lot of money. The Black Gold out in West Texas has been very kind to the Red Raiders. Let's take a look at who is in and who is out this week. Jesse, they got to win against Florida State. Are we back? Are we in on Virginia, or is this kind of a one-off?
I'm an ACC guy,
okay.
So I'm always going to be pro-ACC, and it wasn't just a win. It was a back-and-forth battle that they went up against Florida State, who many people across the country thought, this is a real serious contender in Florida State for playing in the finals of the college football playoffs. And Chandler Morris and company, they're playing some really good football, and that game gave the country a good feel of what teams outside of Clemson and Florida State, Miami, and the ACC are really about.
Well, BYU, you got BYU, Virginia, and Arizona State. They all move. Everybody's starting to see BYU. Maybe it wasn't as showy a win as you wanted to.
Sure.
And then you had Virginia, but it was because I watched Florida State play. I watched all those games of how people played, and you go, this is like a Bobby Bowden team. And then this happens, then it kind of makes you wonder because of the portal and everything else. If you had too many new people and you had such a great win, and then you think, oh, we're playing Virginia, and it's Virginia. Well, Virginia's not Virginia. They were somebody that could get after you, and it was at home, and then they rushed the field.
They looked legit, and I'm glad you brought up BYU. I think them sitting at 23, they're one of the best graded defenses in the country. Jack Kelly is a monster. They struggled early against Colorado, but showed resolve on the road to come back and win that game against Dion and company. BYU could be a player for the rest of the season in the Big 12, and their schedule's fairly easy up until they get Utah here in a couple of weeks. Our game of the week this week, Miami at Florida State. Can the Seminoles get back in the driver's seat? Can Miami prove they're one of truly the best teams in college football? All of that right here for our game of the week. It's the game of the week here on College Football Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola. Alex Dono of Locked On Canes, Brian Smith of Locked On Seminoles. Let's talk about this week's game of the week. Dono, do you fear going on the road against a Florida State team that needs a get-right game?
I don't know if fear is the right word. I would go with the word respect. I've been following this rivalry for long enough to know that Doak Campbell Stadium is a really tough place to play. And an interesting aspect about this, Drake, is it's going to be Miami's first road game of the season. They have not left the friendly confines of Hard Rock Stadium yet. And I think the guy who's going to be instrumental in setting the tone for his teammates is Carson Beck. In his 6th year, all the experience he had in the SEC playing in crazy environments like in Tuscaloosa. He played in Austin, Texas last year. So I really think that, young teammates of his, like true freshman wide receiver Malachi Toney, who's been a big part of Miami's offense so far, are really going to lean on Carson Beck to let his experience kind of guide them through that tough road environment.
It's Miami, Dono. Let's not kid ourselves. Every game is a true road game for the Canes. Brian Smith, because of that experience for the Hurricanes, they go in against a Florida State team that, look, the big question mark is Mike Norvell, right? If he wins a big one but then loses the small one, I mean, what do we do here? Do you have the confidence that a Mike Norvell-led team can go on the road in a top 5 game and get a win like this?
Well, they're playing at home this time, so I don't have to worry about that part. But they're capable of putting points on the board. They got the number 1 offense, number 1 rush offense, and I think they're going to have to score to win. Their defense is pretty good, but they didn't tackle Virginia, so I'm not sure they're going to tackle Miami. The only other thing that I'll say about this, if they're not fired up to play Miami, especially after the way they just laid an egg in some of the game against Virginia, then I don't know what's going on. I mean, it's Miami. It's your arch rival. It's time to play.
Yeah, great clarification. Again, this game in Tallahassee. Dono, give me a brief synopsis and a final score projection.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Miami to win this game, they got to take care of the football because I believe the Hurricanes have the advantage at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So Miami, if they can set the tone and try to outmuscle Florida State, I think it's probably a Miami victory somewhere in the neighborhood of 31-23. I think a big key for the Hurricanes defensively is to be disciplined against all of the eye candy and misdirection that comes with a Gus Malzahn offense. So I think Miami is going to really have to be sharp and have a lot of gap integrity and discipline and communication in this one. But I think if Miami takes care of the football, I think it's another Miami win and a big tone setter on the road.
Brian, your opportunity to push back here. Brief synopsis, final score.
I actually agree with Dono that Miami should win. I think they've played better. They've earned that respect. I've got it closer. I've got it 31-28. But for the same reasons, Miami so far has shown to be the better team in the trenches. If Florida State is going to win, they got to hit some shots down the field. It's going to be hard to move the ball just 5 yards at a time against Miami's defense. But right now, I give the edge to the Canes.
We saw a 2-loss Big 12 team last year win the conference championship, make the college football playoff. I don't think Florida State's out of the picture, even with a loss this week. Obviously, Miami is gunning for an at-large bid, much less a place from winning the ACC. Alex Dono, he's Brian Smith, our 2 experts on this game. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a passionate fan. It's hard work. We all know it's hard work. There's pomp and there's circumstance every single weekend, every Saturday, and it makes you work up a thirst. Fan work is thirsty work. Enjoy a refreshing Coca-Cola.
Hey. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go this weekend to pick the money line of whoever is playing against Utah and probably win many, many, many monies. And it'll go into my pocket, and I'll be so excited and happy. FanDuel is actually where you can go and win a whole lot on college football and have a whole lot in free play in your back pocket. For just $5, you throw $5 down if your bet hits. If your $5 bet hits, from there, that's exactly right. You get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app however you want to. So, Here's what you do. You download the FanDuel app. You throw $5 on whatever game you want to, including Utah versus BYE. And when the bye week wins, you win too. All of that and more at FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com and do it today. FanDuel.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Square. I go down to Island Daiquiri here in Wilmington Island, Georgia, and I enjoy a daiquiri, an Island Daiquiri, and it's run on Square. Your entire neighborhood actually is run on Square. We know that they're just those places that are pillars for you in your neighborhood. And with this episode being brought to you by Square, I bring up Island Daiquiri that's right down the road. And when I go there, I boop, boop, and do the little phone thing to your face, and you click on the Square thing, and it pays for the whole shebang. And so Square is what keeps your neighborhood feeling like home. Right now, go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood with Square.
Those were our local experts on all things Hurricanes and Seminoles. Let's break this game down just a little bit more. Tommy Castellanos, Jesse, is a guy who lost the big one last week on the road against Virginia. It gets to come back home. I called it a get-right game. Typically, you'll see a get-right game be against that pushover opponent, that soft opponent. But being in the confines of Tallahassee in a matchup where you're going to have a sold-out crowd behind you, I think this could be a confidence boost for Florida State, especially if they knock off a top-5 team.
No, absolutely. But when you talk about getting the get-right game, Miami's the wrong team to want to get right against. Even when you look at Miami, where they're really good at is the defensive line.
Yeah.
You know, Reuben Bain Jr. and company, they are really solid in the trenches. So for Tommy Castellano, he has to be a magician. He has to be the guy that we've seen prior to even in the Virginia game, just making all of those plays, because that Miami defensive front is one that is aggressive. They're playmakers, they're strong, they're physical. So I wouldn't say a get-right game, but this is one of those games where Tommy Castellano can put his name out there, up there with the rankings of the Heisman Trophy winners if he can go out there and get a victory against Miami.
Yeah, you said it right. And here's the thing. Everybody knows how good Miami is on defense. So if you can go and you can use your feet and you can be successful,
Yep.
and he can do the things he did, and he can do it against Miami, like anything else, it's kind of like the Ohio State-Texas game. There's more, you get more street cred when you play one of those kind of games early. This is one of those kind of games. You have two quarterbacks that both went to a situation where they went there so they had a chance to win a national championship, play at a very high level. Both of them now in this kind of ball game, and they hate each other. And whoever comes out is going to be the top of the town. So we just need to understand they know what it's at stake.
And maybe that's the get-right aspect to me, is if you win this game, you've erased the Virginia loss. If you win this game, we're not talking about Florida State, Virginia. We're talking about Florida State, who got a top-5 victory, who beat Alabama earlier in the year. That Virginia game is gone, and you have completely gotten right. But again, it's a very tough opponent if you're trying to put things back together and repiece it all. 36-33, Miami leads the all-time series. Coach, we mentioned this a couple weeks ago. These rivalry games, things get crazy, they get weird. Your winner could be anybody.
Well, you go back now to the playoffs of why. If it shows at the end of the year playing these kind of games and you have a loss in one of these kind of games and it still doesn't affect you, like we talked about Notre Dame being 0-2 and still being in the top 25, if you can show you can play these kind of games and you play well in it, but you had Tennessee that misses a field goal. I mean, them and Georgia, could have been
Georgia could be 2 losses.
It could have been flipped, completely flipped. And so I really think that we're seeing, even in the top, I look at the top 15 of all the schools that are there, like we talked about earlier when we were in here talking, you've had 10 teams be in the top 5.
Yeah.
And so now you're talking about Miami and Florida State, both of those teams being 2 of those teams that have been that, and now people getting pushed. I think everybody knows what's on the line, but they know it's not the end all like it was when you had a 4-team playoff. It's now, hey, look, I played somebody, I've got a resume. Win or lose, if I play well, I have a resume, and it's going to be counted on later on when we get to December.
No doubt. I think we're seeing one of the most competitive college football seasons in a while at the top. Yes. We're not seeing a ton of massive upsets, but I think the top 15 from 1 to 15 is much closer than it was in seasons past. You have, Coach, you said preseason, 8 or 9 teams that could vie for a national championship. That may actually be 12, 14, 15 in 2025. I think it's good overall for college football. Another team that wants to be in that conversation, the Vanderbilt Commodores. They are our can't-miss matchup against Alabama this week. He is the expert on all things Vanderbilt from Locked On Vandy, Corey Burton. Corey, last season, 40-35. The shock of college football, Vanderbilt taking down Alabama. Can lightning strike twice?
Absolutely. I mean, this Vanderbilt team is way better this year than they were last year, I think, especially up front when you look at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think what they've done in their 5 games this season is they've really controlled the line of scrimmage. So that's been the biggest key for this team. And, of course, Diego Pavia developing on the skills that he needed to improve on coming out of 2024. So this team is probably the most complete Vanderbilt team maybe ever.
Diego Pavia is off his parents' insurance. He can rent a car without any excess fees. And he's maybe the most experienced quarterback in college football. What does that experience give him in this game against Alabama, who's got a first-time starter at quarterback here in 2025?
Well, the experience is, from an SEC perspective, he's been through the league 1 year. So that's a ton of experience right there. He's seen a lot of football. He's seen a lot of defenses. He's worked with a lot of talent. And he's got, I think this is his 3rd or 4th year with Jerry Kill and Tim Beck by his side. So he's got a ton of just overall college football experience, SEC experience, and, of course, system knowledge and experience as well that goes with all of that. And the comfort level that you get and the confidence level that you get being that experienced.
Corey, give me a quick synopsis and a final score.
Quick synopsis. It's going to be a physical game. It's going to come down to who plays the cleanest, who wins the line of scrimmage. If Vanderbilt can control the line of scrimmage, they can control the game and control field position, they will win. If they can run, they will win. Bama struggles, or they have struggled thus far stopping the run, and they've struggled thus far on 3rd down. So I think it's going to be physical at first. The scoring is going to open up a little bit, but I think Vandy's going to win 34-31. You're going to get a last-second field goal or late field goal from Brock Taylor to put them ahead for the final time.
And the Vandy fans will storm the field in Tuscaloosa and take those goalposts as well and start a GoFundMe and all of that.
Those goalposts are not safe. Yes.
Corey Burton, the expert on all things Vanderbilt, thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys. You guys do a great job.
Thanks, Corey. Coach, we got to start it with you. You were just in Nashville watching Vanderbilt, got a very up-close look at the Clark Lee program. Do you think this is a team that's ready for Alabama, ready to beat them again?
Well, for them to win, they have to do what they did last year, 12 of like 18 on 3rd downs, and ran the ball, controlled the clock, did all of it. I really think it comes down to Pavia. One of the things that I was so impressed with, he controls everything as far as call is concerned. He's going to get up there. He's going to check the whole offense. They allow him to do it. The things that are not in their favor, in Alabama's case, is they're not fooling them this time. I think Alabama may be playing at the highest level these last 3 ball games of anybody that I've watched on tape. And so for Vandy to do it, they've got to do just like he said earlier. I think you're going to have to be able to, Corey did, they're going to have to be able to control the line of scrimmage, and some good things are going to have to happen to them.
Jesse, transitive property does not work in college football, but it's the weird circle of Florida State losing to Virginia, but beating Alabama, and Alabama beating Georgia. None of it really makes sense to us, and it may not until the very end of the season. How do we judge this Alabama team? Do we still keep that Florida State game in our psyche, or is this the same Alabama that beat Georgia, and that's how we look at them the rest of the season?
Listen, sometimes it's what have you done for me lately? And lately, the Alabama football team beat Georgia, right? And so the thing is, when you look at this as a whole, Alabama wants his lick back, right? You lose to that team last year with your hopes on the line. They want their lick back. And it's going to be a tale of 2 teams, because when you look at Alabama, they're one of the best scoring teams in the first quarter. They scored 10 points in the first quarter. But Vandy's not a team that goes away. They score 24 points a game in the second half. So Bama has to come out, do what they do, but able to maintain that throughout the course of the game, because Vandy's one of these teams, Coach, and you saw it firsthand, that they have a never stop fighting attitude. So I think Bama wants to get their lick back, and it's going to be a really good football game.
Well, that's what I told Coach Lee. They were on the sidelines and they were frustrated last week because Utah State, and it was 55-35, and they gave up some big plays. And I said, wouldn't you rather be all these things went wrong right now?
Yeah.
But you won 55-35, and then you made all these mistakes next week against Alabama. That's when you wanted to have the perfect game. So I think that's what they're looking for. They want to be able to go into Tuscaloosa. They want to be able to play their kind of game. They want things to go right for them. And I think they'll be more focused. No matter what anybody said, they just came off of Virginia Tech, and they came off of playing South Carolina. They won both those games on the road, right? Nobody felt like, I don't think they were favored in either one of them.
And they dominated South Carolina.
And so then you play to Utah State. You're not going to play like that every day. And so I think you're going to get a great ball game. I think you got two good teams that come after each other. Even though I'm, Jerry Kill, Vandy, all of it, I right now I kind of lean a little bit towards Roll Tide.
Shocking, Jesse. Between Vanderbilt and Alabama, our analyst said Alabama has an advantage.
I said I just leaned a little. I didn't jump in the back seat.
Look, and credit to Vanderbilt. Any other year, we might not even have this game on the sheet of paper right here as a talking point. It's awesome. We're going to see a top now 20 matchup between Vanderbilt and Alabama in Tuscaloosa this weekend. We have kept you long enough without telling you how to win money. It's time for our lock of the day here on College Football Kickoff.
Thanks, Drake. After another wild week in college football, it's time for another lock of the week.
Open it, open it, open it. Lee has the key to the lock of the day.
This Saturday, we head to the Lone Star State Big 12 battle. Texas Tech, an 11.5-point favorite at Houston. Both teams are at 4-0. Lee, what do you like in this one?
Well, NIL, money spent, is very important to this game. Texas Tech, number 2 in the country, just behind Texas. In fact, top 6 schools, only 1 combined loss. Why? Texas and Ohio State played each other. Texas Tech, right now, their best win was against Utah, 34-10 in Salt Lake City. And if you're saying, well, it was turnovers. Nope. They dominated play. They had a 484 to 263 total yard advantage, and they played more than half of the game with a backup quarterback. Houston's best win, Colorado. That's right, 2-3 Colorado, with wins only Delaware and Wyoming. Texas Tech, now an incredible defensive line, 4 new transfer starters from other schools who were all conference last year or right up there. They held Utah to 101 total rushing yards, and Devin Dampier just 11 for 27 running the football here. This Houston team is going into a gunfight with just a knife here. Texas Tech is going to be my lock of the weekend.
And for more daily picks, subscribe to Locked On Bets. Back to the College Football Kickoff studio. We'll see you next week, Drake.
Thanks, guys, as always. Houston, though, the number 2 defensive team in the country in net EPA. That's an efficiency metric, but we can't ever disagree with Lee.
You don't want to do that.
Say it right down the middle with Lee Sterling.
I like my knees.
6 of them. We still all have 6.
Yeah, we still got 6 knees. We're good.
The production staff's all good, too, so I think we're safe for now. We'll keep the topic on gambling, though, because Lane Kiffin, a college football head coach, decided this week to chime in saying, take the over. You have coaches now that are giving fans directions for their game. And that's just a part of how now gambling's become the vernacular of college football. They work one in the same. And so why not go deeper into it with this week's Coach's Corner?
I learned a long time ago when I first became a head coach. In my first 7 or 8 years, people would say to me at the end of the season, Coach, you covered the spread. And, I was a young head coach. All I cared about was winning. I didn't even think about it until we went to the Rose Bowl in 2010, and Wisconsin, which we played at TCU, was scoring like 70 points, I think, on their last 6 or 7 opponents. And then somebody brought my attention. They said the spread, and they said it was -2 TCU, that we were favored in the ball game. And I'm like, have you guys lost your mind? We're in the Mountain West Conference. It's the first time anybody's been allowed outside of the Big Ten or the Pac-12 to play in the Rose Bowl, and you're saying that we're favored. Well, we ended up winning 21-19. So then from that point on, I started paying attention to them. And to be honest with you, whether the line was large for us or against us, especially when it was for us, I would always talk to my teams about, hey, look, if you don't play well, you know what I'm going to say. What are you guys all on the take? Is this what's going to happen? You guys didn't have to play very well. But you need to understand, I would pay attention to the line, especially when it got to Wednesday, Thursday, or Fridays, for the simple reason that if that line went from 1 to 4 or it went to a plus, then you start saying, well, who do they know? What do they know that's going to really make a difference? Somebody's not playing. There's an injury thing that we don't know about. And my guys said to me, well, Coach, there's this offline injury deal that tells everybody really on Tuesday or Wednesday who's not going to play, who is going to play coming out of Vegas. And so I started paying a lot of attention to that. And then as a personal thing, we used to be, we'd be, let's say, picked to win by 45 points over a 1AA team early in the season or somebody that wasn't late at night on my call, and I would take a knee, and let's say we were supposed to win by 2 and we were on the 25-yard line and there was 30 seconds left, and I'd take 3 or 4 knees just to run out the clock, to be a good person. And then somewhere in the middle of the night, I'd get a death threat because somebody had bet a lot of money on a game. The thing that happened, though, is that you had caller IDs, so then I could get to a point where I could actually call those people back, Drake, and talk to them about, and there'd be, Coach, I'd had a lot to drink, this is how much I bet. I said, well, what are you doing that for anyway? I mean, it's like, but, I would say to you guys, it's a real thing. Those guys are professionals. I think nowadays in those times, we couldn't talk about it, but we all thought about it as kind of what my point is. But nowadays, with all the betting going on, now coaches, players, I think all of them think about it. So what do you guys think? I mean, at the end of the day, it still comes down to a lot of pressure and a lot of money.
I think first, you counseling bettors across the country who are calling your phone, you calling them and saying, what are you doing with your life? I like that you called them back and gave them a couple words of advice. So, Jesse, here's my question. We can talk about the large spreads. Coach mentioned that a little bit. Hey, your team can, if you're a 22-year-old, you're going to see, okay, we're favored by 24 points this week in a conference game. Your head could get too big. My question is, and an example of this is this week, Iowa State, top 15 team in the country. They're playing Cincinnati, who's unranked. Cincinnati's favored by 2. So if I'm a Cincinnati kid, if I'm your 20-year-old cornerback, I see that and I'm thinking, what? They're favoring us against a top 15 team? That almost sounds fishy to me, the player, right? Do players read into lines and say, wow, we're favored this week?
The thing is that you said it perfectly. You said, I'm a 22-year-old kid in today's society.
Yeah.
And what that does is, because you have to look at the way that it's worked out now. Back when I was playing college football, back in the early 2000s, we didn't have social media. There wasn't, there wasn't at the drop of a cell phone you could pick up the scores, and there wasn't Instagram or Twitter or all these other things. There were, the FanDuels of the world and all the different, outlets.
Trifecta.
Where you can go and you can make these bets. Now, you had to go see our boy Lee Sterling, down at the bookie.
Lee's been in this for a while.
You had to go see the bookie down by the bar to get a bet in. So it just wasn't a prevalent thing till nowadays. It's everywhere. You have sponsorships are doing it in stadiums. It's on everyone's cell phone. It's everywhere on social media. So it's a constant thing for these younger kids because people never let you forget it. As long as you're on social media, you're going to see the way that people are betting in these games. So I think they are more mindful now than ever.
So the big spreads this week, whether it's Kentucky at Georgia, the Dogs are favored by 20.5. It's this Ohio State versus Minnesota game, or UCLA and Penn State. Coach, question for you. If you're Penn State and you beat UCLA 42-21, you waxed them. You took them out of the woodshed, but you didn't cover the spread. Is there something in the psyche of the coaches, the players, where you get done with the game and you say, oh, we missed this certain metric in the sky?
No, really to me, it's just, for me as a coach, it was about, did we play well or not?
Yeah.
If we played and this is the best we could do, and they had a good game plan, and dude, you can't do anything about it. The games I worried about is when you had a large spread and then you went in and your kids just did not. I mean, didn't feel like there was a lot of energy, all these things, and then a couple things happen against you, and all of a sudden you're turning around. And really, it's what happened to Florida State and Virginia. All of a sudden you come out, you turn the ball over, all of a sudden you're down 14-0.
Yeah.
And now you got to claw and fight, and all of a sudden that you're getting nervous because this has all happened to you. You didn't think this was going to happen. Your kids didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, and those are the kind of things I think with coaches. I think once we get before the game, all of it, think about it. Once that ball gets kicked off, you don't think about those kind of things anymore. I mean, at the end of the game, I'm more worried about that I didn't embarrass the coach across the field than I was about whether a guy won.
Cover the spread.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the other side of this, and we'll end it here, is if you're in Florida State's spot last week where you're only 6-point favorite, I think you look around the locker room and go, we're only 6-point favorites? Are we worried? What do you mean only 6-point favorites against Virginia? And then that starts crawling in the psyche that, wait a second.
I think from a player's perspective, you don't really think about that. Like, you know that there's an opponent that you have to go and face.
Yeah.
And football players sometimes are just built a little bit differently. Like you're kind of insulated in this bubble and you're only looking at the next game. And you're saying, I don't care what the point spread says. I don't care what we're favored in. That we gotta go play this football team. And a lot of it, when you pop on the tape and you watch the film, you can sit there and say, this is a good football team, and if we don't bring our A game, they're gonna beat us. And I think the spread is, again, it's an outside thing that happens to filter inside just because of the way that social media works nowadays.
Yeah. The other thing, Drake, that I had to start doing is I had to start talking about them. I was telling them, and I use this as a joke. A couple big, not so good-looking offensive linemen, and so, two of the prettiest girls that ever came up and started talking to them out of nowhere, right? And then they'd say, "Well, who's going to play this week? Who's injured? What's going on?" And they're like, "You know what? These girls are talking to me." Yeah, well, there's a reason why they're talking to you, and it wasn't. And that was the joke all the time. It really wasn't because they really liked you. They're going to get paid on the other end if they came up with some information. Was the quarterback?
Their Uncle Lee Sterling.
Talking.
He's trying to get a little information.
Well, here it is.
Yep.
Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda is bringing class, power, and style to you, and Mazda cars do simply more than move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. All-wheel drive, standard in every crossover SUV. You can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is exactly where I go when I'm looking for concert tickets to my favorite college football game, or even going to a comedy show. Went and saw Tyler Childers in Queens, New York this week for Dirt Cheap in the Pit. I was standing from me to you to the artist, all because of Game Time and how cheap tickets are. Pull up Game Time, couple of tabs, see amazing deals, and even go to your favorite college football games for as low as $25. I love the zone deals. Pick a section, Game Time picks the seats, you save big. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time and do it today. It's Game Time.
So, to me, a piece of this, these large spreads, take me to the 12-team college football playoffs. This is our topic of the week this week. We talk about the 12-team format and kind of how you build your schedule with large spreads and teams you can beat. So we heard from Kalani Sitake, the head coach at BYU this offseason. He said at Big 12 Media Days that every team in the Big 12 should play 3 games out of conference against teams from the ACC, the Big 10, and the SEC. Here's my question, though, Jesse. If your non-conference schedule features, let's say, Louisville, Ohio State, and then, I don't know, Indiana. 3 decent teams, right? And you go 9-3, you might miss the college football playoff. But if you go non-conference against Samford, Georgia State, and South Alabama, and you're 12-0, do you miss the college football playoff?
No, I don't think so. When you look at like SEC schools, right? And here's the reason why. It's because, I may go out and I may play 3 top contenders if I'm BYU or one of those other outside schools, but my in-conference games are not that tough. It's teams like the SEC where every single week it is a battle. Like you look at A&M's schedule coming up here, like they're playing top 10 teams every single week. And that right there is just to me, it shows that you can go through the fire against top-level competition and come out a little bit unscathed. To go win 3 games opposed to going to win 9, 8, 9, or 10 games within conference like that to me holds a little bit more weight than the outside.
So Coach, that's what the question is for me. Why would you schedule tough teams out of conference if you lose and you're penalized, or you can just add a win to your win total?
So I always had to had 4 athletic directors. Yeah. And our deal was we'd always play what we call a slide game where we weren't going to be picked to win. Like we'd play Ohio State, somebody like that, because number one, you wanted to find out what kind of team you had. Yeah. So then we would play a 50-50 game, somebody that people thought we should win, could go either way, or one you should win. Those were your 3 non-conference games, but you always wanted to play one so that if, like the year we went to the Rose Bowl, and even when we went to the Fiesta Bowl, we played Virginia and Clemson on the road and won both of them, which was tough, especially they were wearing all orange, which they don't do very often in Clemson. Yeah. And then we played Oregon State back when they had the Rogers brothers, and you had a really good Oregon State team come to town. We played them the first game of the season, but I think you got to be able to prove to people, just like you do that you played somebody in the non-conference besides, especially when I was in the Mountain West Conference. Yeah. And that's basically in some ways, that's what I think Sitake, he's talking about. He's talking about you got to be able to show when they look at a resume, you better at least have one of those games on your deal, because I think you can lose one. You go 11-1. Okay, you lose like we would always play. We played Oklahoma as our stretch game. Always. In 2005 we beat them. In 2008 we didn't beat them, but we still went 11-2. We started setting the stage, because then you go 11-2 the next year, and 9. You go 11-2, 12-1, 13-0, and then we go to the Rose Bowl. We went 36-3. So you played somebody like that every year.
Yeah.
I think you have to play a stretch game to be able to prove to people that this is the kind of football team that we have.
And also, when you add to that, you don't want to have these teams enter in the college football playoffs and get dog walked. Like, that's just not good for TV.
Sure.
So if these teams are winning these games, in conference, they're 9 games that they won in conference, and they kind of played, the out-of-conference games so-so. Now when you get in the college football playoffs, where, Coach, you understand this, I have time now, fully a month to prepare for this football team, and then you get the showing, and it's a blowout. It's not good for TV. It's not good for the big money people that are paying the sponsorships, and then it's not good for college football to watch those type of games.
Well, then you look at Indiana, where I would have just handled it different, the way it looked, where he dropped somebody off the schedule. Can you imagine, though, the team he was, and I can't remember who it was he dropped off, right? But if he plays that game, is he ranked higher now?
Right.
Because he played somebody in non-conference schedule before he got to the Big Ten?
It's a great question about Kurt Cignetti, who's also brought this up. But Cignetti's point is, look, I'd rather be 12-0, and I had 3 cakewalks, than be 9-3, and I played 3 different LSUs. And until the committee says strength of schedule is a metric we'll go with, to put a 9-3 team in who played 3 LSUs versus a 12-0 team who played 3 Samfords, that's a lot different. They're going to have to make that distinction to be able to move forward. But if we talk about schedules and BYU playing an easier schedule than LSU, that's non-negotiable. That's objective. Can we fix that with the 33-team conference, Coach?
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier. My whole thing
Good
was.
Good segue, huh?
Hey,
Come on now.
No, when you get into in the top 13 teams, and I was looking, it's Miami and Texas Tech of the top 15. That's the only thing that's not a Big Ten, or you're not an SEC team. Yeah. And so I think one of the things we were laughing and joking about was, well, you got 16-1, you got 17-0. We'll just do the Big 33. I mean, we'll come back with the Big 33. Then we'll have a bigger TV right, and we'll go about our business.
Look at all those logos. Oh my gosh.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about right there. That's a color coordinated whole top of group. And you could you imagine trying to say, well, who exactly is at the top of the standings?
Of the Big 33.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know where we start.
Would you go east and west? Would you go north and south? I mean, how would you do this?
You got to regionalize it somehow, right? And this is a wild hypothetical. Here's the weird part, though. I do think that, and we've heard a lot in the offseason, North Carolina, Miami, Clemson, Florida State are lobbying better positioning in a different conference, likely the Big Ten, possibly the SEC, because those 2 leagues are making $20 million more per team per year than schools are being paid by their TV contracts in the ACC or the Big 12. So I think we're going to see a very different ACC come 2030, 2031 as these TV contracts start to run out and become restructured. That's when I do think you'll likely see the ACC and the Big 12 say, look, we either work together or we die in college football. But right now, the ACC, I think they're 2-5 this year against the Big 12. It's a conference that's trying to get back into the national spotlight without their powerhouses like Clemson or Florida State. They need Louisville to be really good. They need SMU to be really solid, and they've ebbed and flowed. Let's get into a couple of those games that come from the Big 12 and maybe an ACC team or two, as we've already talked about Miami and Florida State. It's time for our playoff playbook. It is Texas at Florida. That's where we'll kick this thing off. Florida. So here we go.
Here we go.
Man, life is a circle.
Here we go.
6-point spread in this game, right? If you're Billy Napier, you're going, we're playing Texas and they own it's only a 6-point spread. You know, again, it's that rat line. It's like somebody smells something here, and they think that Texas might slip up this week.
Well, it's Arch Manning's first conference game. It's on the road. Welcome to the SEC, Texas. And the Swamp is a tough place to play. And right now, we came into this season and we thought Arch Manning was going to be the second coming to Jesus in football pass, and it hadn't quite worked out that way. And even though Florida's kind of...
He's more like a Paul, right?
He's one of the disciples. He hasn't quite gotten there.
He's not
quite gotten there yet. But I think when you look at that and say, hey, going on the road, Arch hasn't been as good as we thought he would, that's still a tough environment to play in.
Well, yeah, I think this is one that they wish they would have flipped the games where it was going to be in Austin. You know, that's, as you said, a get better game.
Yeah.
I think they would feel a lot better if they had their own 100,000 people screaming for them and doing it. And, you know, to be honest with you, quarterback for Florida, he throws 5 picks.
Lagway, yep.
Yeah. And so you need to understand, they haven't played their best football. They got well last year with a big win, I think, LSU. Mm-hmm. And I think you're looking at a situation where you got a Texas team coming to town, plays great defense, trying to find themselves really a little bit on offense with a young quarterback. And Florida's looking at, and you know, from sitting in the locker room, and I think you'd know this, I think you would agree, Jesse, no matter what the coach says, they know, they watch TV, they watch the film, they know you can say all you want to your team about trying to talk them into, well, they're not very this or they're not that. But at the end of the day, the kids know. You can't fool a 6-year-old. You're not going to fool a 22-year-old. And so they know. And this, in some ways, the 6 point, all of that kind of gives, I think, Florida a little bit of confidence because you know you haven't played your best football. You know you're athletic enough on defense to go get after them. And so I think this is going to be an interesting one.
Vegas believes in Florida. I mean, if I'm a 22-year-old cornerback, like Vegas believes in us.
Desperate team right there in Florida. So, you know, Vegas might look at that and go, they may just throw everything at this Texas football team.
They need it. Iowa State at Cincinnati. I don't think either of these teams are desperate right now. I think they both have looked really efficient, namely Iowa State, but they are underdogs on the road. Jeff Carr of Locked On Bearcats. Will Cincinnati get it done?
The Cincinnati Bearcats are going to beat the Iowa State Cyclones this Saturday because of their offensive line and because of Brendan Sorsby. Drives, and he orchestrated the most clutch drive of the game with 1:45 left in regulation. He was able to lead the team down the field and get the go-ahead touchdown. And I love this offensive line. They've allowed 1 sack all year long, and they just look really strong and provide the balance that Scott Satterfield wants to run on offense. Whether they are passing or running the ball, this offensive line is lethal. That's why I think the Bearcats get the win over Iowa State at home at Nippert Stadium. It's sold out. It's going to be striped red and black. Bearcats going to get that win.
Jesse, sweater to sweater.
Yeah.
Brendan Sorsby is a good quarterback.
He is white hot right now. He's playing some phenomenal football. After taking that early loss to Nebraska, he has been on an absolute tear. Watch out, because he could be one of those guys that can really take over.
Coach, you got a soft spot for Boise State. You've mentioned your early years at TCU before the Big 12. You're reminded of Boise State.
To them right now because they felt like they are. They got 2 losses. I mean, their back's against the wall. There's nobody that they're taking lightly.
It is Kentucky on the road against Georgia. Look, a 21-point spread, 20.5-point spread here, Jesse. I know we're talking a lot about spreads today. I think Kentucky can at least slow the game down to the point they lose this 35-24.
Is it basketball season yet?
Yeah.
Kentucky's waiting for basketball season. Like, let's be honest. Kentucky's waiting for basketball season and going down to Georgia. After Georgia losing to Alabama, they're going to be looking for basketball season real soon in Kentucky.
Yeah. Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Coach, I think this is another feather in the cap for A&M. I think Mississippi State is a good football team, but when you're playing on the road against now a proven SEC opponent like the Aggies, I've got the other team in maroon who's playing at home this week.
Yeah, they're just playing great defense. I think it'll be closer than what you think. You know, they played Tennessee, I mean, right down to the wire. I think it's going to be the same thing in Aggie land.
All right. I've thrown my pen twice this show. It's a record. It's the 3rd time. That's a wrap on this week's College Football Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola. For this season just getting started, it's heating up. Next week, the Red River rivalry is just beginning to stack the slate of games. Same time, same set, same unapologetic football energy. I won't be here. I'm on vacation next week, but I hear that Coach is going to take our stand-in host to the fair and get him a turkey leg. That's what we're told. Big thanks to Coach Gary Patterson and Jesse Holley for bringing the heat, and to you for riding shotgun with us. Enjoy all the action this weekend. Stay locked in, stay fired up, and we'll see you next Thursday right here on Fire TV.